Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're back here on Monday morning for another episode of the podcast. We've got some recruiting news to cover as the Huskers finally flipped Isaiah Mozee at the end of last week. We're going to talk about what that means for the 2025 class and the blue chip percentage trending up. And then we're going to have a little discussion about Dylan Raiola. When will Matt Rule name him the starter? Is he going to be the starting quarterback? I guess I shouldn't get ahead of myself. So we'll talk about that, some more fall camp buzz, and yeah, before we get to that, please make sure that you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure they get to the comment section. You can also check out the podcast at Spotify, the Apple Podcast as well, so you can get the audio version, so you don't have to look at our ugly mugs if you don't want to. And at any rate, how you doing this morning, Danny?
I didn't get a ton of sleep last night, so I'm surviving, not thriving yet, but it's still very early in the day, so there's always room to trend upwards. And speaking of trending upwards, Nebraska recruiting continued to trend upwards with a commitment on Friday, as you alluded to.
Yeah, Isaiah Mozee, we talked about it. It had been trending in this direction for a long time. It finally hit Friday afternoon. The four-star wide receiver ranked 247th actually overall in the 2025 composite rankings. So the highest ranked commitment for Nebraska right now in the 2025 class, 6'1", just a dynamic receiver. Is a guy who can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can even take carries as a running back. And honestly, he reminds me a little bit of Wan'Dale Robinson, just watching his film and the way that he can take kind of short screens and really turn those into explosive plays. Now, I don't think Nebraska is going to utilize him in that same way. I don't think they're going to misuse Mosey the way that Scott Frost and company.
I was going to say, if they used him the same way as they used Wan'Dale, then it would be such a waste.
But I definitely could see them, when you think about this positionless offense talk and you add him to, Jalen Lloyd and Malachi Coleman and all these other pieces that they have in the future, Carter Nelson, it's just really exciting to think about what they can do, in the future with all of these offense and all these pieces surrounding quarterback Dylan Raiola.
I've loved Mosey since last year. I think he's a really dynamic player. I like what he can do after the catch, and he has the speed that this coaching staff looks for. So, I'm ecstatic that Nebraska was able to land another really, really talented player to the wide receiver room. We were just talking about what's taking Matt Rule so long to name Dylan Raiola or whoever a starter. I was wondering why it was taking Isaiah Mozee so long to commit to Nebraska, especially since his father was announced on the coaching staff at the end of July. So finally, Isaiah Mozee is in the fold. Like I said, dynamic player, absolute weapon at the wide receiver spot, and just another, weapon for Dylan Raiola to throw to. And, you talk about dynamic playmakers and offensive playmakers, and this wide receiver room is absolutely loaded.
Yeah, I mean, even getting beyond, Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayer, who will be gone after this season. I mean, Carter Nelson, Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd, Ja'Cory Barney, Quinn Clark, who's been, making a name for himself in fall camp, Isaiah McMorris, Davon Hall, and then there's some other guys in the 2025 class too. And there was also an interesting report from Brian Munson of Husker Online that Nebraska could be trying to get Cortez Mills on campus for the Colorado game. That could be depending on kind of what happens with Michael Terry, but that piqued my interest a little bit because that I love Cortez Mills as much as any player in the entire 2025 class. Like if I had my choice, like him or Michael Terry, it'd be a really, really tough choice because I know Terry's ranked a little bit higher, but I just really feel like, Cortez Mills with Dylan Raiola would just be, and the rest of these receivers like that, he could just take the top off the defense, blow the top off the defense. And not that Michael Terry can't, and I really hope that Nebraska can get him too, and I do think that they have a shot. But at any rate, there's a chance that Nebraska can still improve, their blue chip percentage in this 2025 class, which has started to trend up, pretty well. I mean, we've been talking about that a lot, but I think they're five blue chip commitments now in the 2025 class. So, it's definitely moving in the right direction.
And also, just talking about visitors for the Colorado game, Nebraska will have 2026 four-star quarterback Michael Clayton on campus for the Colorado game. Clayton has visited Nebraska before, doing so in June, and he was given an offer during his visit. Last season, he threw for 1,902 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And he has an offer sheet that includes the likes of Arkansas, Auburn, Cincinnati, Miami, Ole Miss, those type of programs. So the Colorado game, as we kind of look towards the future a little bit here, could be big in terms of visits. And as it should, what an atmosphere that will be.
Yeah, that could be a big weekend for visits, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to get like Christian Jones on campus, because he's that was also reported, I guess, a few days ago. I can't remember if we covered that on our last episode of the podcast, but he's basically down Christian Jones to Miami, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. He's going to make some decisions. He's going to take some visits this fall and then see kind of where things go. I think Oklahoma is probably the biggest threat to get him right now, but I'm not counting out Nebraska. I've heard that they're starting to make a stronger push, and maybe they can get him for one of those visits and kind of seal the deal. But the thing is about Christian Jones, and I wrote this, and this is how I feel about it. He's seen everything that he needs to see from Nebraska. I mean, I guess I've heard it can help, if they win these first few games, which, I mean, I think that can help with any recruit. So, I mean, maybe he needs to see that winning, take place on the field. But outside of that, I mean, he's been to campus a million times. He's been to a million games. So, like him seeing Nebraska play Colorado, outside of like them dominating the game, maybe like there's nothing else that they can really show him that he hasn't already seen.
And could you really blame him if he wants to see winning on the field first before he commits? I mean, I don't blame him. I would do the same thing. And so it'll be interesting to see how far his recruitment extends into the fall. And, if Nebraska can make a stronger push. But right now it seems like, the 2025 recruiting class is shaping up to be a really strong one, a really good one. You have TJ Lateef. Now you have Isaiah Mozee. And it's just a testament to how much talent they can bring into the program, when they need to.
And I'd have to correct myself. So Nebraska has 6 blue chips, according to the 24/7 composite rankings in 2025. So they have 18 commitments total. 6 of those are blue chips. So, for those of you maybe you can't do that great a math, that's 33%. That's the blue chip percentage. That's different than the blue chip.
I'm glad you did that math for me.
That's different than the blue chip ratio, because the blue chip ratio is something that 24/7 Sports Bud Elliott will figure out over a 4-year period, and it's basically, so like if you have 85 players on your roster, what percentage of those players that were signed and recruited are blue chip prospects? But 33% is a pretty solid number for Nebraska, and there's still, you've got Christian Jones out there, Michael Terry's out there, David Sanders, although David Sanders did just get a Steve Wiltfong prediction last week for Tennessee, so that's probably kind of go the way that we expected it to go, but there's still some opportunities for Nebraska to add to this class, and Christian Jones might be the best opportunity, but I still think they've got a shot with Michael Terry and maybe a guy like Cortez Mills. You never know, and if Nebraska goes out there and Dylan Raiola is lighting the world on fire and they start 4, 5, 6, 7-0, that could, generate some buzz on the recruiting trail late in the process.
Yeah, not only with Cortez Mills, but with others as well. I mean, I think it's hard to recruit when you're a program like Nebraska, who, had a losing season last year. Players want to see it, like Christian Jones, like Cortez Mills, even to some degree David Sanders, although we're not trending, in that direction for him. But if we start winning, things will get better on the recruiting trail. And it's not like they've been bad. So, it's just a testament, again, to how hard this coaching staff works. And, I feel like we've said this at the same time last year, too. Once the wins start coming, recruiting will be easier. But overall, I think a really good job by this coaching staff, coming off, again, that 5-7 season last year.
And looking ahead, we've got, some fall camp buzz. There was another scrimmage on Saturday. Not a ton to report. I mean, Matt Rule talked about, some things that needed to be cleaned up. It sounded like there were some turnovers in the red zone by the quarterbacks. Tom Osborne's the only guy who got to see the scrimmage outside the program. So, not a ton to report really from there, but, Ramir Johnson's still, making a push at running back. There was a Bly Hill's been practicing. He's in the yellow jersey, so not completely out there, but he's still getting some reps. There's a few other guys in the yellow jersey. I can't remember off the top of my head who they were, but Tristan Alvano also practicing back as part of the 120-man roster. So some of those injury concerns, like Jeremiah Charles was one guy, was limited in practice the other day. So that's kind of concerning, just knowing that Nebraska doesn't have a lot of depth at cornerback. And I don't know, man, I'm still worried about left tackle. You got walk-ons taking reps with the first team. It's a scary situation now that Teddy Prochazka's out for the season.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a scary situation, but at the same time, you have a quarterback that can get rid of the ball quickly. You have a quarterback that knows when to kind of, throw the ball away, make plays, things like that. And so I think having a smart quarterback under center, one that doesn't necessarily, one that's hopefully not turnover prone, and one who's smart with the football, is going to be a tremendous asset. I mean, you heard Matt Rule talk about Dylan Raiola earlier this week, and he was just gushing about his work ethic and how he handles himself. He was on, I believe it was the Zach Gelb show, and he said, quote, "He's a winner. He understands the game. He's thinking about the game all the time. He studied everything. If a receiver lines up wrong, I mean, he knows it. But Dylan knows what every guy on the field is supposed to do because he's put so much time and work in. Like I said, he loves to compete. He loves playing. He loves practicing, and I think that's contagious. So I think what we're dealing with here is a quarterback that can, kind of make the best out of a difficult situation, whereas some of the other quarterbacks we've had over the past couple of years might have shrunken under the pressure."
So yeah, that leads into another talking point, or kind of a debate that we wanted to have here in not a super long episode of the Husker Big Red podcast, but I wanted to ask when do you think, or when is going to be the right time for Matt Rule to name Dylan Raiola the starter? Because I listened to that interview that you're quoting from there, and I mean, he's not talking about Daniel Kalen like that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he doesn't. He likes Daniel Kalen, but he does not talk about Daniel Kalen the way he talks about Dylan Raiola. So I'm just wondering, he said when everybody knows, well, no, I mean, come on, man. Everybody knows. Everybody in this program knows. You could tell the second that Dylan Raiola led the team out there for the Big Red preview. I mean, they know. The players know. The receivers know. The other quarterbacks know. Glenn Thomas knows. Matt Rule knows. Every single opposing fan knows. Like I posted on Twitter, this was my TED Talk that they need to start Dylan Raiola, and somebody mentioned back, well, maybe it's gamesmanship. Like, come on, man. UTEP knows who the freaking starting quarterback is going to be for Nebraska. They ain't prepping for Heinrich Harburg. I guarantee you that. So why don't we have this announcement yet? Name him the starter. Let's get it going. Come on.
I knew after the red-white game, honestly, back in April, but I'm not sure. I think has to be by next week at the very latest. No, I mean, we kind of know who the starting quarterback is going to be, and I get wanting to give everybody, a fair shot at the competition and not naming, a quarterback starter too early. But I think it's pretty clear who the starter is going to be on August 31st.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been clear since the day he signed his name on the dotted line. I mean, Matt Rule's made him go through the competition. I mean, he had to earn the job, and he did. But I mean, it was clear that he was going to be the guy. And I mean, it's just. I just don't want to wait anymore. I get that there's still a competition for, the backup job, but I think it's pretty clear that's going to either be, Harburg or Gramstead. Frankly, I don't care because I don't think it matters until it matters, right? It's like, who gives a darn about the backup quarterback right now? Because it's not going to matter if Dylan Raiola starts every game and we're able to protect him and all that stuff. Does not matter. It will matter if Dylan Raiola has to miss any snaps. Then I care. Okay, but it doesn't matter if we have a number 2 quarterback on the depth chart going into UTEP because, we'll know who the backup is when we need to know, and that's when it's needed. And hopefully the backup quarterback's not needed, but I think it's, it's going to be Heinrich or it's going to be Gramstead. I just think that that's pretty clear at this point. Daniel Kalen has some more developing to do. And so, yeah, let's just roll. Let's name Dylan Raiola the starter. Let's make it happen. We're less than 3 weeks from the game. So, yeah, I just hate when coaches do this thing like, oh, we're not going to name our starter, and that's going to give us a competitive advantage. Like Jim Harbaugh always did that crap, and it just drives me crazy. Like it doesn't give you an advantage at all. Like they know who. It's not like they're like, well, let's run. It's not like UTEP sitting there like, well, we better get some practice reps in here in case Heinrich Harburg's the starter. Like every single person who follows college football knows who the Nebraska quarterback will be this season, including the players. So just make the announcement.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. I think it's a little bit interesting that they're waiting this long, but I'm saying again, by next week we'll know who the starter is, like officially. So, and then if it goes beyond next week, I don't know what to say.
I mean, he might just be determined to wait till week 1. I mean, and that's fine. Like Matt Rule he doesn't have to name the starter because I want him to. Like, he can tell me to go to hell. It's his team. But I'm just saying, like, if he's going to go by what he said, like, just name him, man. It's time to start the Dylan Raiola era. And at any rate, I did pick the Huskers to start 7-0 this season. So in my game-by-game predictions.
No, yeah,
But I
that's
think you did too, though, didn't you? I can't
yeah,
remember. Either
yeah, yeah.
6-1 or 7-0.
I had 6-1 with the one loss to Colorado, I believe.
See, I almost See, I'm really worried about Rutgers. I'm worried about Colorado, and then the Purdue and Indiana games are going to be
Yeah,
tougher than people think.
Indiana's going to be tough.
Yeah, and my thing with Purdue is like everyone, like when Illinois had a good defense, the reason they had a good defense is because Ryan Walters is a damn good defensive coach, and so I just worry with a young quarterback, like maybe he mixes up some coverages, confuses Dylan a little bit. I don't know. It's just on that's like the first road game too that he'll play, and I just feel like that one of those games could be troublesome. But when I look at it objectively, Nebraska has the better defensive line. They got the better quarterback. I think they've got the better coach than all of those teams. So I mean, it's like if you have those things, like most of the time you're going to win the game, and that's why I think they have a really good chance to start 7-0. I picked them to finish 9-3. I'm not like getting crazy, but I do think it's a realistic thing if they can protect the quarterback, and that became a lot bigger if when Teddy Prohashka got hurt just because of the depth purposes, and
Yeah, I
it's
was
not
going to
like
say the offensive line, I think, is going to be the key for that game. For the record, I picked them to finish 8-4, but that left side is going to be a storyline as camp continues and even into the opener. So,
yeah, it will be, and hopefully Teddy can hold down the fort there. We talked about that last week, but that's going to be really important, and hopefully some of those young guys too can step up. Grant Bricks, Gunnar Gatula, some of those guys if needed. So, all right, you guys, we'll wrap it up there. A little bit of a shorter episode here. We'll have some other content coming up this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. We'll have another episode. We will be starting up the Saturday chats here very shortly. Probably for the first game of the season, but maybe, who knows, maybe we'll get started a little bit earlier. But at any rate, thanks so much for supporting the channel, you guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
go Big Red.